My name is Leona NOVOBERDALIU. I have the honor to represent my home country located in the heart of Europe. Ever since I won the Miss Slovakia title last year, I tried to balance my separate lives as a student, economist, model, and Miss Slovakia 2020. Very soon I realized that all my roles have a meaning that can be multiplied if combined. And that is how I started my advocacy to implement sustainable solutions to give our planet a second chance by reversing the climate change and saving money at the same time.
The climate has changed. It is changing and it will keep on changing. What is the status quo situation? For the first time in the history of our planet, mankind is changing the climate on a global level and in the long run threatens its own existence, as well as the lives of other species on the planet. And unlike previous changes, this change is unprecedentedly fast. The current climate crisis is caused by a change in the chemical composition of the atmosphere caused by mankind by constantly burning fossil fuels. Climate change today presents a risk on multiple levels for the current 7 billion population. The thousands of years of stable weather on which we have built our agriculture are beginning to change. Higher atmospheric temperatures bring more extreme weather, which means only one thing: the instability of the yields of the plants on which we are dependent. Not to mention the natural disasters which destroyed hospitals, schools, private properties, and even claimed human lives. Ocean warming is bringing about the rise in sea level, which if it continues will salvage farmland and drive the coastal population to inland. Not to mention the negative impact of climate change on the environmental stability of the oceans. Rising temperatures are lowering the pH levels of the oceans due to higher concentrations of CO2 in the atmosphere, which has already destroyed much of the coral reefs on which part of the human population still depends. Cities are the center of many activities and therefore produce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. Urban areas account for between 60 and 80% of global energy consumption and CO2 emissions to about the same extent, so they have a significant carbon footprint. That is why increasing the energy efficiency of buildings must be an important part of the fight against climate change. Today, buildings are responsible for 40% of global energy consumption and associated greenhouse gas emissions. Buildings, therefore, play a significant role in reducing global emissions. Of all the sectors, buildings have the greatest potential for reducing global CO2 emissions. The involvement of private capital could be a key solution for the slow renovation of public buildings. Slovakia needs to triple the rate of the renovations, which is currently heavily dependent on EU grants. The involvement of private capital in the form of energy performance contracting would help reduce the burden on public finances and meet building renovation targets more quickly. It is a contractual agreement that makes it possible to increase the energy efficiency of buildings and finance it from future savings. The EPC provider undertakes to implement measures on the building that will lead to energy savings and at the same time guarantees the amount of these savings. Instead of paying for energy, the EPC recipient pays these savings to the company which implemented these energy-saving measures in the first place. The benefit for the EPC recipient is lower expenditure on energy consumption in the future and no constraints whatsoever to their budget when it comes to financing these solutions on buildings in their ownership. If Slovakia wants to choose the path to carbon neutrality, we must implement and support ambitious solutions in this sector now. The authors of the strategy recommend increasing the pace of renovation of public buildings and family houses. According to the recommendations of external consultancies, it is necessary to reduce the total energy consumption in buildings by 60% by 2050 in order to meet the goal of climate neutrality. My proposed solution consists of two key parts. The first is the renovation of the current state of our buildings in order to reduce energy consumption and the associated production of greenhouse gases. The second part of the proposed solution is the education of young people to perceive the need to protect the planet from an early age and to be aware and conscious of the threats posed by climate change and its potential impacts on their future. In my Beauty with a Purpose project, I am coming up with a pilot project in which I am organizing a fundraiser for the installation of photovoltaic panels for a primary school with a kindergarten for children and pupils with hearing impairments in Bratislava. These panels will enable the school to be permanently freed from constantly rising electricity prices and will at the same time help reduce emissions and energy consumption. The total amount needed to install these photovoltaic panels is €14,600. Each €1,616 collected will reduce the repayment period by 1 full year. Currently, the repayment period for a pilot school is calculated for 9 years. With this project, we will achieve future savings from which the management of this exceptional school will be able to finance other necessary aids for their children and students in the future. I like to believe that every individual is a piece of an enormous puzzle, and only together we will get to decide what will the final picture of the world in the future look like.
My wish is to make this pilot project a replicable solution to aid Slovakia reach its climate neutrality goals and to educate future generations about the climate change and the potential threats it represents. This project will serve as a best practice example that could be followed by other institutions to overcome the economic and bureaucratic burdens. It is not too late to realize that there is no planet B and to start thinking about the world's future now.